Good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order. Make sure when Representative Haskins comes in, everybody looks at him like he was late. We're going to start today's budget hearings off with John Yeary, the General Counsel, Kansas Board of Regents, here to talk to us on the coordinated institutions and then about the independent colleges, correct?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Turk, members of the committee. So you want to do the coordinated institutions first?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Board of Regents was created by Article 6 of the Kansas Constitution. It's empowered by the legislature, responsible for the control and supervision and operation of the state universities in Kansas, as well as coordination and supervision of the public community colleges and technical colleges in Kansas, and regulation of private and out-of-state higher education institutions. It's important to note the two-year sector, the boards of trustees of the community colleges and technical colleges have custody of and are responsible for the property of their respective colleges and are responsible for the operation, management, and control of the colleges, except as otherwise expressly provided by law. The Board of Regents' duties related to coordinated institutions include establishing guidelines for accreditation, aligning and approving courses, programs, course program locations for state funding purposes, and facilitating any merger or affiliation consolidation activities. And then for all of post-secondary educational institutions, including the coordinated institutions, the Board of Regents serves as an advocate for the provision of adequate resources, sufficient authority for the post-secondary educational institutions, serves as a representative of the public post-secondary education system before the governor and the legislature, and provides planning for higher education, adopts from time to time, amends, revises, or modifies, and administers a comprehensive plan for coordination of higher education within the state. I've got a number of other duties listed. I won't read all those for you. We have articulation procedures so that maximum freedom of transfer for students if they start at one institution and then go to another institution, so there are credit transfers. We coordinate programs, approve core indicators of performance, and obviously receive and allocate state funds appropriated for the funding of post-secondary educational institutions in accordance with legislative directives and the statutorily established performance agreements. We administer state scholarships and the comprehensive grant for coordinated institution students, and administer federal grants for career and technical education under the Perkins 5 Act. And I would be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Yeary? Nope. I don't know what you did to get off that easy, but thank you very much. Did you have some comments on the independence as well?
Oh, absolutely. And I have a
I know you have a time frame. You got to get through us, get somewhere else. So
handout for that as well. Thank you. So the 22 independent nonprofit post-secondary institutions are statutorily exempt from regulation by the Board of Regents. I've listed those institutions that are listed in the statute. However, the board does administer financial aid programs which students attending the independent institutions are eligible, including the comp grant and a number of others that are listed, notably the Teacher Service Scholarship Program, National Guard Education Assistance Program, the State Scholarship, Nursing Service Scholarship, and similar ones. And so our role there is very different than it is with the two-year sector or the state universities. So the independents are independent because they're independent of supervision or regulation by the Board of Regents.
okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Yeary concerning the independent colleges, or if you thought of something about the 2 years? Anything, any specifics you want to know about how it's set up in the state, the roles of KBOR within them, et cetera, et cetera? Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair.
Next up, we've got Heather Morgan once again, the Executive Director, Kansas Association of Community Colleges. Welcome back to committee, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And today I brought friends. With me today, I have the president of Hutchinson Community College, Tricia Paramore, the president of Garden City Community College, Ryan Ruda, as well as trustees from Seward Community College. Keely's waving in the back corner, as well as Marilyn Douglas. So we're going to kind of tag team this presentation, if that's okay with you. First is a little sheet that is smaller. This is the pre-budget presentation answering the questions y'all asked the other day. On this sheet, the first table addresses our non-high school enrollment trends in the two-year sector for the past about 6 years. And again, remember that the community colleges have about 35,000 non-credit students that are not counted in the head count or FTE by the Board of Regents. The second table illustrates a table that has to do with the question about how many out-of-state students and international students do we have at the community colleges and if those have grown or not. You can see the bottom line on the table is this green line, which is the number of international students has stayed pretty flat. The number of out-of-state students might have ticked up slightly, but you can also see that the number of our in-state students are also ticking up slightly. The third table at the bottom talks about the percentage as a whole of the number of students that we have that are in district versus out district. You might be remembering that in district means within the taxing county. Out district means somewhere else in the state of Kansas. So as a community college system, we have about 47% of our students are from the taxing counties and 53% of our students are from the rest of Kansas. Johnson County Community College, just because of the population, skews that a bit. If you take Johnson County out, about 34% of our students are in district and 66% of our students are out district. On the next page, I included a table so you can see by college, the percentage of in-district students, in-state students, as well as international. And then the last page is a table that we created actually about this time last year of wait lists for our programs. So there are a number of columns on this back page. The reason there are multiple numbers is that's how many colleges have wait lists for the programs. One of the things that the business and industry funds have allowed us to do is to try to reduce these waiting lists. But across the state, there are over 1,000 students waiting to get into some of our technical programs. So I just wanted to provide this to you as well as a way of answering the questions. Representative Haskins the other day asked a question about cannibalizing enrollment. And I would like to not use the word cannibalizing, but talk about enrollment shifts. The enrollment shifts have occurred between colleges. For example, Cowley and Butler used to be, and Pratt had locations in Sedgwick County. As WSU Tech has grown and been able to serve their own home county, those students who previously may have attended those institutions are now attending WSU Tech. There are other situations like that, that students may have historically attended one college are now attending another. So I will agree that the demographic shift that was mentioned the other day is part of the answer, but there are a lot of other things that are causing shifts between enrollment between colleges, and the number of programs and what they offer is one of them. So with that, I'm going to start our budget presentation. Thankfully, our for credit enrollment has stabilized and was up 4.1% head count and 4.4% full-time equivalent students last academic year. Again, we have about 30,000 students, over 30,000 students that are taking non-credit courses. That might look like Burlington Northern Santa Fe using Johnson County Community College to train their railroad workers. It may look like an oil and gas company in Seward County training oil and gas technicians. They need workers who have certain skills. They don't necessarily need for credit enrollment. We don't get any funding through the cost model for those non-credit students. We believe that this segment will continue to grow as employers really need specialized skills and aren't always interested in those academic credentials. Community college students in Kansas are different than the other levels, other providers of higher education in Kansas. Our students are generally older. Our average age of students is 24. About 80% of our students are part-time. Most of our students are working and learning. Over 70% of Kansas community college students are staying in the state. For our technical programs, it is a much higher percentage. And if you think about where our community colleges are located, we do have some leakage across state lines just because of proximity. About 80% of our graduates who are graduating with their associate degree in nursing, which is an RN, are staying in Kansas. We are providing the RN workforce for the state by and large. Community colleges are doing over 70% of the technical education in Kansas. And again, we do not receive any state aid through the cost model for any student who is not from Kansas. With that, I'm going to turn it over to one of our trustees who, again, we are locally governed. Our trustees are elected. I'm going to let Marilyn Douglas talk about community colleges from a trustee perspective.
Thank you, Heather. Members of the House Higher Education Budget Committee, it's my honor to talk to you today in support of Kansas community colleges. I am a trustee at Garden City Community College. I'm in my 5th term there as a trustee, and I'm also an officer at Kansas Association of Community Colleges. It's important to know that community colleges are the gateway to higher education, to workforce training, and to economic vitality for communities in Kansas. I just want to share 2 brief points with you from a trustee perspective. First of all, community colleges are committed to effective, policy-driven governance. So we as trustees set the expectations, we support and evaluate the college president, and we ensure accountability. We make sure that what we set happens, and we do that with integrity, respect, and careful attention to what the needs are in our communities. The second point is that we emphasize efficiency and responsible stewardship of public resources. We require, as a board, program reviews that are based on measurable outcomes, enrollment trends, workforce needs, and cost effectiveness. Those reviews help drive improvement, maintain our accreditation, and they ensure that the taxpayer investments are producing results. But I'm also encouraged that there is a new growing trend across Kansas community colleges, and it's not about competition, it's more about collaboration and sharing services. Institutions are working together to take care of students in a more efficient way. So in closing, Kansas community colleges are governed with care, they're operated with efficiency, and they focus on workforce and student success. An investment in community colleges is one of the most cost-effective investments that Kansas could make in its workforce and the economic future. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Marilyn. The next page of my testimony on page 4 talks about efficiency and program review. Each one of our board of trustees has a responsibility to review programs and to make sure that they are not only meeting the needs of the community, but they're being operated in the most cost-effective way possible. Garden City Community College last year made the difficult decision to end its theater program. Often there are a lot of stakeholders that you don't know love theater or whatever program you're trying to close until it's time to do that. They made the difficult decision, have figured out ways to continue to offer theater programs to their students without having the traditional academic program. Kansas Association of Community Colleges over the last probably 3 years has really stressed how do we work together to lower cost, share services, and make sure that we are, as a system, operating as efficiently as possible. We have bulk contracts, we have sharing of back office services in some cases, we have sharing of faculty and staff, and we use not only the state procurement system to buy off bulk contracts, but we often go to vendors and say, if all of us buy together, what kind of deal will you give to us? On page 5 of your presentation, I included an example of what program review might look like at a local community college. This program, for example, is surgical technology. All of the costs of the program, the overhead allocation to the program, the number of credit hours that are being delivered are all calculated into, is this program producing a positive return on investment for our community? I won't stand here and say that every program has a positive investment, because nursing and allied health programs are expensive, but they're also very critical and serving critical needs in Kansas. So rest assured that all of our boards of trustees across the state are doing this program review, and we are really trying to put a focus on not only reviewing the program, but reviewing the economic outcomes of the program, and if they're not where we need them to be, what can we do to make that a better situation? Across the state, there are almost 92,000 students in the community college system. Our alumni impact is $6.2 billion. If you look at the jobs that are supported across Kansas, over 8,000 jobs are supported by the community colleges, with over $381 million in added income. A few years ago, almost 3 years ago now, we did an economic impact study, and I was shocked to find out that the community college economic impact from our study was actually larger than K-State's. It's because we are across the state, because we are in every corner, serving every county. On the next slide, page 7, is the amount of, on average, tuition fees and state appropriations coming from the different funding sources, as well as our expenses. If you want, I will provide you the state appropriation and the local mill levy for each college. I just didn't have time to do that before this presentation, but I can definitely do that so you can see where your community college might be in terms of local investment. For every $1 invested in Kansas community colleges, we're generating $2.20 in economic return. Students are staying and working in Kansas, and we have the most affordable tuition. Our goal is to be affordable, accessible, and nimble to meet the workforce needs of Kansas. Our students are transferring to four-year institutions with a higher GPA than native students. Our students go on to be successful whether they're going into the workforce or transferring to a four-year institution. The next page shows where all of the community colleges' tuition and fees rank compared to the Regents universities. And it is often a very, one of the most difficult decisions for our local trustees is where to set tuition and fees, to make sure we have enough to operate, but not so much that we're keeping students from accessing affordable higher education. The next sheet, I would just encourage you to look at in your spare time. I've included a bunch of statistics that many of you have asked me about into these presentation, talking about, well, how many undergraduates do you have in headcount? How many do you have in enrollment? How many high school students? What does it look like if you take the high school students out of your enrollment? And you can see that the community colleges are doing a significant amount of the education in the state. Truth in advertising, I used AI to create the next few slides. So you didn't have so many spreadsheets, you have some visualized tables that really show all the things on that spreadsheet in graphical form. Community colleges are accounting for 37% of the undergraduate FTE in the state, as well as are the primary deliverer from a headcount perspective of undergraduate education. Community colleges have 42% of the non-high school FTE. And then on page 14 of the presentation, you can see for the community and technical colleges what our total headcount and our FTE is, and then broken out by high school students, which was one of the questions you all asked the other day. Community colleges serve 63% of all high school students in the post-secondary education system, but they only make up 20% of our FTE and about 27% of our headcount. On page 15, this is really important information. You may have heard in the big beautiful bill that the president has enacted and just finished negotiated rulemaking to make sure that the degrees that we are producing students in are, that they will be able to make enough money to pay back their student loans and move forward. I included a table here that by different occupation codes, what are community and technical college students making 1 year after graduation and making 5 years after graduation. You can see that students are coming out with 2-year degrees or certificates, making well over $50,000 in some cases, and our nurses are making A Colby nurse just got hired for over $100,000 out in Northwest Kansas. So we're producing students who are going into well-paying jobs. Included some information about the number of short-term certificates, and associate's degrees. I will tell you that the short-term certificate is the fastest growing credential in higher education. And then I included by sector where those credentials are at. Are those credentials in education? Are they in ag? Are they in allied health programs? Taking a breath. On page 18, the student success funding is really important to the community colleges. The 2026 data book just came out, and we are seeing significant increases in retention and graduation rates. The student success funding that we have had and that we hope to continue to have has been invested in systems that will allow us to have early intervention with our students so that they don't drop out, they don't have stranded investments, but they are progressing towards whatever path they choose, whether that's the workforce or a four-year degree. Proactive advising increases completion by 10 to 15%. Tutoring and supplemental instruction increases by students' completion by 5 to 12%. We are seeing more underprepared students coming to community colleges from our high schools, and we have to wrap around support around them to make sure that they are successful in post-secondary. We have a tremendous number of partnerships in the community college system. The Kansas Independent Colleges, which you will hear from later, 2 years ago signed an agreement with us that allow all 60 of our hours to transfer into their programs credit for credit. That allows our students to not have to have an extra semester towards graduation, not unexpectedly lose credits. We found that to be a great partnership. So great that Emporia State in December duplicated that partnership. We also have partnerships with our Kansas Independent Colleges who are now offering bachelor's degrees on our campuses. One of the things that we are also looking at is 90-hour bachelor's degrees. How do we partner with other people across the state? We often are hearing that you don't need a 120-hour degree, but we think it's really important to talk to industry. For example, in drones, both WSU Tech and Cloud County Community College already have a 2-year degree program in drones. We're not hearing from the industry that you necessarily need a bachelor's degree. They need people with skills who can go into industry and do the work. So in Garden City, Newman University started out 3 years ago. I have 60 students in the program. The president was just telling me there are now 90 students enrolled in bachelor's degree completion programs through Newman on Garden City's campus. Newman is working with our other community colleges across the state. We're working on a cyber and UAS partnership that was supposed to be announced earlier this week, but we had to reschedule for the snow. We also have community colleges running programs at other colleges, whether it be Pratt running electric linemen in Dodge and Pratt, Wichita and Coffeyville, whether it be Barton running Pratt's nursing program or Butler running Cowley's nursing program. We have already partnered together to figure out the most efficient way to run some of these programs. Hutch and Barton have a partnership for respiratory therapy. There's no reason to duplicate these programs, so we figure out how to share things together within existing resources. The business and industry money that we have, I've already highlighted. On page 20 of your presentation, there's just a list of businesses that we've worked with at one college. The list of businesses we are working with across the state is huge. I was talking to a president at lunch, and I said, no, these are just the businesses in your community. And she said, no, we work with any business who calls us, and if we can't deliver it, we call a community college friend to deliver what they need. We are on the recruitment trips with the Department of Commerce. There have been 2 recruitment trips this week that we are sitting next to the Department of Commerce talking about the skilled trades that we can help upskill their workforce if they choose to locate in Kansas. With that, I'm going to turn it over to President Ruda from Garden City to talk about one of their premier partnerships.
Thank you, Chair Turk, members of the committee. My name is Ryan Ruda. I have the privilege of serving as president of Garden City Community College. I want to share a clear example of how targeted investment in community colleges deliver immediate returns for Kansas employers, Kansas workers, and the Kansas economy. In 2020, Empirical Foods broke ground on a new $350 million state-of-the-art beef processing facility in Garden City, one of the largest private investments that our region has seen in decades. This facility will employ up to 250 high-quality jobs and a long-term commitment to Kansas agriculture. But like many employers across the state, Empirical faced a critical challenge, finding a training, skilled, reliable workforce fast enough to meet operational demand. Garden City Community College stepped in as a true workforce partner from the onset, working directly with Empirical Foods even prior to the selection of Garden City as their site location. The community college aligned curriculum, training schedules, and facilities to meet the company's specific workforce needs. This included customized training in industrial maintenance, safety, automation, and meat processing technologies, designed with the employer input and delivered on a timeline that matched production realities. Through the development of curriculum, Empirical Foods made an investment in infrastructure, faculty, and professional development to help stand up programming. And through the past 5 years of construction, Garden City Community College and Empirical Foods have partnered on a program called Fully Connected that provides students with the training and education along with the ability to work within their existing plant to gain hands-on skill building and application of training. The students are in class half days and then on-site in the plant for half days, being paid as an employee for their skill building and acquisition of learning. Because of this partnership, Empirical Foods has been able to hire locally, promote internally, and reduce turnover, while Kansans have gained access to family-supporting wages without leaving their community. This is workforce development, working exactly as it's intended. Business and community colleges working in tandem to meet workforce needs. But partnerships like this don't happen by accident. They require modern equipment, flexible training space, industry experienced instructors, and the ability to respond quickly when employers make major investments in Kansas. Community colleges are uniquely positioned to do this work, but only if we have stable, adequate funding. An investment in Garden City Community College is not just an investment in education. It's an investment in Kansas agriculture and food production, rural economic development, workforce readiness and business retention, and keeping Kansas competitive with surrounding states. The new Empirical Foods facility opened in full production December of 2025. And because of the partnership and the workforce connections with Garden City Community College, they had the trained workforce in place to meet the needs for initial production. As Empirical Foods grows and as other employers look to Southwest Kansas, the question is not whether jobs will exist. The question is whether Kansas will have the trained workforce ready to fill them. Empirical Foods leadership has stated publicly, as recently as December of 2025 at a legislative luncheon in Garden City, that Garden City Community College is the most progressive and forward-thinking partner that they have worked with in any of the states and training facilities that they have partnered, including universities, research universities, as well as Carnegie Mellon. With your continued support, plans are in place to expand programming needs for Empirical to include robotics, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing pathways. Garden City Community College will remain a dependable partner, ready to meet industry needs, support students, and strengthen the Kansas economy. Thank you for your time and commitment to higher education and workforce development in our state. And I will now yield the floor to Tricia Paramore from Hutchinson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you today about Hutchinson Community College and the value of apprenticeships in the community college system. If you consider all of the degrees and certificates that were awarded in the last academic year across the state of Kansas, 11% of those degrees and certificates came through Hutchinson Community College. And about 54% of those degrees and certificates were technical related. They were in career and technical education programs, making Hutchinson the third largest producer of technical credentials in the state. You've heard a lot about collaborations between community colleges. President Ruda just explained to you one of the partnerships that we now have, that Garden City has with industry. And The model that I'm getting ready to speak to you about is just another prime example of the collaboration that occurs between community colleges and our state business and industry. And this model is the apprenticeship model, specifically registered apprenticeships. The registered apprenticeship model involves several components. One of those is that an employer will hire a particular individual, and in order to train that person exactly the way that they want that employee to be trained, they will partner with a community college or technical college to do a registered apprenticeship. And that registered apprenticeship involves several components. One of those is on-the-job training. So the employer, the community college, and the employee/student will sit down together and make a plan, put together a plan that will involve what we call related technical instruction. What courses at the community college will that student take for that training that the employer is requesting? Those courses could be for credit, like credit hours, or it could be non-credit training as well. So you combine that related technical instruction with on-the-job training that the employer provides specifically for that individual. Then as the employee/student starts going through the apprenticeship, at the end, there is a guaranteed wage progression. So as the student completes a certain number of credit hours or a certain number of hours of on-the-job training, they progress in their wages. In some cases, several times through this model, such that by the end of their apprenticeship, they are now making more money than they were when they started. So it's a win for the employee. It's also a win for the industry, for the employer, because their employee is trained exactly the way they designed their training to occur. So the employee is very much valuable to that employer. You have a smattering of, oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about that. So would this education program be a customized deal for each student?
Yes, absolutely it is. It's a partnership between the college, the employer, and the student. So ultimately, it's a win-win-win, right? Everybody wins all around. That we get enrollment at the college, the employee gets perfect training and a better wage to support their family, and the employer gets a perfectly trained employee exactly the way that they want them to be trained.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. So you have a number of examples on page 22 of the different types of apprenticeships that we are doing now in Hutchinson, anything from ag to aerospace to sand and gravel, plastics, steel, healthcare, fire, HVAC, you name it. Lots of different industries in our area. Another example is youth apprenticeships, just kind of a derivation of a registered apprenticeship, but it goes down to a student who's as young as 16. So these students can start while they're in high school, work through the wage progression while they're still in high school, and when they graduate from high school, they are now employed. They're making more money than they would have just as a typical high school graduate, and the employer is very happy with the employee that they have. So I will turn it over to Heather.
We're going to skip ahead to page 25. What we're skipping over is just some more historical trends in enrollment. On page 25, this slide is about the Excel in CTE program. This program has been growing significantly over the last few years. The top line is the participation in Excel in CTE, which is again at no cost to high school student career and technical education training at the colleges. The top line is the credit hour production. Then you can see the participation, the number of students participating. Those lines on the bottom are the credentials earned and the industry recognized credentials earned, as well as the post-secondary awards. If you turn to slide 26, this committee is particularly interested in how has the Senate Bill 155 program been growing in expense. You can see from 2016 to 2026, how Excel in CTE funding has grown. And again, this is a reimbursement program after we've delivered the courses. The community and technical colleges have worked together to recommend putting some fences in place to slow this, what appears to be unsustainable growth. Those fences, as I like to call them, include making sure that we are training in the most high wage, high demand programs, which are corresponding to the Promise Act, making sure that we have students who are prepared in the courses, so they're on track for graduation with a 2.0 GPA, the state not paying for students who are failing the courses, as well as focusing on juniors and seniors. Finally, to the budget request. On page 28, Senate Bill 155, Excel and CTE is short funding in the current year. What we are asking is, there was a community college who did not qualify to use the business and industry funds and student success funds that were awarded to them in FY26. Moving those funds and adding 1.013 million to fully fund Excel and CTE in the current year. That would be a supplemental appropriation of new money of just over $1 million. On the next page is the 2027 request. What we are requesting is essentially a $1.1 million reduction from what we received in 2026. It would keep business and industry funding at 14.3 million, student success at 10.5 million, capital outlay at 12.4 million, would include the Tech College Operating Grant, which I'm sure they will talk about, at 7 million. It would include fully funding tiered and non-tiered courses. As a reminder, we get paid on a 3-year rolling average, 2 years in the rear for those courses. That equals about 8.9 million shortfall. And then there's the 10 million that we're requesting to be reduced from Senate Bill 155 from the fences that we have created. All of these changes result in a $1.1 million reduction to state general fund. And with that, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Heather. Do we have any questions for Heather? I'm sure we have a handful. Representative Riley.
Heather, when the Dodge City Community College closed their theater program, did those students transfer onto the, maybe to the Pratt program? Because
It was
a long
Garden City
time-
Community College. Let's see, President Ruda, where'd your students go?
Because I know that the Pratt Community College was very aggressive on their theater program.
Yeah, so actually all of the students that were in the program the previous year have remained at Garden City Community College. So we have found them other scholarship opportunities. We still have theater being offered at Garden City Community College, just not with the full-time instructor and not as a program. But each of the students did remain at Garden City Community College this year.
Many of our students are place-bound and may not be able to transfer to Pratt, but being from Pratt, Pratt would be really happy that you think they have a great theater program.
Do you have a follow-up on that one, Representative Riley?
Yeah, just following up on that, on the Pratt program, I know that when I took some students over there to the Pratt program, I mean, if you help build the set or whatever, you got full-time tuition, they were very aggressive as far as getting theater people in there, so I didn't know whether those people.
They have a phenomenal instructor at Pratt in the theater program, I happen to know.
Representative Kahar.
Thank you, Chair. On one of the first handouts that we reviewed, there was a pie chart that explains the in-district versus out-of-district. If you pulled the dual credit students out, since they're kind of a captive audience, do you have any idea what the percentage, how those would change?
No, but I'll get that to you.
Good question. Representative Sawyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious why Pratt Community College has so many more out-of-state international students than any.
You and I both are curious about that. And I asked that question yesterday of their interim president. What I believe it is they run a program called Educan, which is an online education system. It used to be a consortium. Now they have the whole thing. And I think that that is skewing their numbers. But I am digging into that because I am also interested in that question.
That's a good rabbit hole to go down into. You are very good at throwing lots and lots and lots and lots of pages and numbers at us. One of the questions, I'm sure if I'm stealing somebody's thunder, I apologize in advance, is of all these, which of these institutions are heavy on the online?
Allen Community College.
And apparently, what was it?
Pratt's a little smaller institution, and so it gets a little skewed. But Allen was one of the leaders in first being to the first online, but Allen has a lot of online classes as well.
And their online courses are, which of these institutions offer online courses to foreign students?
We don't certainly target foreign students with our online classes, but I'm not saying there's not any in there.
Just curious. It seems to be one of those questions that are across all of our Kansas institutes.
We're not focusing on the international population. We're trying to take care of Kansas. And if surrounding states want to come to our programs, we don't tell them not to.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions? Representative Kahar.
Thank you, Chair. I love the collaboration with the apprenticeships and the workforce development involved there. I was trying to take notes and follow. Are those students graduating with a certificate or a degree, or is it just pure apprenticeship?
No, they're usually coming out with a certificate or a degree. So what you try to do is package what they need specifically into a certificate or credential. So they might already know something. Well, they don't need to take classes on things they know. They need to basically plug in a skill, but we try to package that into a certificate or degree.
Follow up, go ahead.
The hours that they're spent in the other business where they're doing the apprenticeship or job shadowing, I assume that's employer-led.
Employer-led and employer-paid.
Paying credit hours for those.
The related technical instruction can be paid for in a variety of ways. The employer might pay, the student might be on the Pell Grant, there might be a scholarship. So it just really varies by the employer. That's where we try to customize it. The employer says, I can't pay. Okay, let's make sure the student's scholarship eligible, Pell eligible, those sorts of things.
Follow up, go ahead.
So, sorry.
You're right.
Thank you, Chair. So the community college is collecting money for hours that they're not doing?
No, when they're working, that's not anything for credit. Yeah.
Appreciate the
Yeah, don't ever worry about, you do not have to say, I'm sorry for a question. I assure you, your questions are to the benefit of everybody here, so. Yes, only Representative Haskins has to apologize. Speaking of Representative Haskins, it is your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. Nice job, Heather. And you cover a lot of information. You're obviously passionate about the community colleges. It's something I enjoy talking to you with about. I want to go to your slide or the handout about the wait list. And just the first line, CDL, the commercial driver's license. I'm blown away by that, the wait list, because if there's anything I see, especially with bus drivers, is opportunity to employ. You don't give us the location of, it's just Kansas community colleges. Where are these wait lists at?
Well, I think the biggest one is probably at Johnson County, and they, through their ARPA funding, did establish a CDL range and are now starting up a program. I still think there's probably some wait list there. It really varies. CDL is a tricky program to run for our college perspective. But what we see is we need students who are the bus drivers for the school district. They also need to do the motor grader, and then we have over-the-road truckers. Workforce Pell is something that the big beautiful bill authorized, and that the governor is going to have to continue to decide what's going to qualify for Workforce Pell. So CDL could be offered for credit or not for credit now. And we have all sorts of partnerships. So it really varies across the state. Southwest Kansas is a desperate need for CDL drivers. And so Seward County, Dodge City, and Garden City have been trying to partner on CDL programs down there because there's just a huge need.
And Mr. Chair, I just, one more question after this statement. It saddens me that the theater program was eliminated. I understand the numbers, having done program reviews. Having a minor in theater from Washburn University, I'm saddened by that. But the reason is like, we focus a lot on industry recognized credentialing, which is important, but often those careers answer how we do things in life. The arts and the humanities answer why. And I would like to continue that thought. But my last question is in Senate Bill 251 that was passed yesterday on non-citizens not receiving in-state tuition. A large portion, even though it's a small population, came from community colleges. If this passes and goes through, how will community colleges address that?
Community colleges will follow the law.
Well, that's a cheap answer. I mean, you've been like, why will they? No, it's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Navigated well. Do we have any further questions? Representative Wagner.
Yeah, Heather, thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. I do want to, on page 15, where you have the median wages 1 year post, were you surprised? I mean, I was comparing 2015 to 2020, 2023. You actually, I mean, I guess I would commend you by this chart where you're so technically and career oriented that the wages, I mean, that you must be hitting them well because the average wage keeps going up, very noticeably. And I don't know, it just struck me as like a real feather in the community college hat that what you're doing is actually really, really resonating, with the industry employment.
And I'll just say I did put this together. This is part of Key Stats, which is an amazing database on the Board of Regents website. This comes from the Department of Labor data, and they're able to look at actual tax receipts from what people are earning. And I do think it's very informative because sometimes you hear national or state rhetoric, oh, the salary is this. Or, oh, you're in rural Kansas, the pay is horrible. I can tell you some of the better paying jobs are in rural Kansas. And so it's interesting from a college perspective to be looking at these to make sure that we're educating our citizens about the opportunities available.
Thank you, Heather, very much.
Thank you.
I know, and I apologize, we have stuffed a lot of information into a short period. You did a very good job there. Next up, we have Dr. Gregory Nichols, President, Salina Area Technical College. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair Turk and committee. I'm excited to be here for this presentation on behalf of the Kansas Technical Colleges. We are a group of 7 colleges, as you know. We work a little bit differently, but very similar in a lot of respects to community colleges. We focus mainly on technical instruction. With that, we do have associate degrees that do require some general ed. So we do offer a full plethora of courses for the associate degree in the areas that we serve. So we really focus on high wage, high demand, and critical need jobs. You had a few questions earlier this week that I want to provide you with some information from our perspective, but I want to do that towards the end. I really want to focus this presentation on what is really important, and you heard that a little bit earlier this week, but to reiterate, we think there are some great things that were presented earlier from the governor, from the House, and from the Senate side. We think that tiered post-secondary education is important, and the aid that comes from the state is in that model that I helped formulate when we did the recentering process a few years ago. So this body did what I think was an out-of-the-park job getting the tiered and non-tiered post-secondary aid funded. Excel in CTE is a critical part of what we do in technical education. It's only tiered courses. So those students that don't have the ability, excuse me, they don't have the local ability, oftentimes they can't travel to or from the location at the college. Sometimes those are offered on a college or on a high school campus, but we'll talk a little bit about that from our perspective later. But those programs are really important to get the student ahead in the game. They're out in the workforce sooner. They don't take on some of the student debt that we are all probably familiar with. So that's an important part for us. The capital outlay funding is a critical part. It's been around for a long time, since the 1970s. I like to say that to my kids back in the 1900s, because 2 of them were born in the 1900s, but 2 were not. So that funding has been around. It's area vocational technical schools is the genesis of that funding. And so any of the colleges that either formed as a technical college or a community college, they've received that capital outlay fund for years. A few years ago, that was extended to the 10 colleges, community colleges that were not part of a affiliation merger or some absorption of the AVTS in their region. But that's an important part for us. As you know, probably technical education is a little bit more expensive than your traditional lecture class. So the equipment, the instructor, the reason why they're tiered is based mainly upon the instructors. If you're out in a shop, you can probably successfully instruct 15 maybe. If you're in a dental hygiene program or in a nursing program, your student to teacher ratio is a lot less. So that's the tiered part. It really has to do with the closeness and the type of instruction you're doing. The lecture course, the lecture part of the course, you can lecture to a lot of people. So just for your information, that's kind of the genesis of why those are different. The cost of the equipment is included in the extraordinary cost, as you know, for the tiered courses only. So the non-tiered courses don't have that extraordinary cost for equipment and supplies and things like that. Our request, we want to essentially keep things about what they were last year. We have one difference. The Technical College Operating Grant used to be 10.5 million. We don't have the local tax support that the community colleges do. That has historically not been a part of any of the technical colleges. But that structure is in place and allows community colleges to do great things across this state. I spent a lot of my career as a community college employee. I have a great heart for those, and I know they do great things in their community, and they need support from their local community, but so do we. And we don't have that taxing authority. So our difference from the FY26 appropriation would be to replace it back to the FY25 $10,500,000. That is equally distributed among the 7 colleges. That has been historically since it's been put in place. This body, the Kansas Legislature and the governor, a few years ago did put that in place to say, it's important what you do, go do things. And we talked on Monday about what things we were able to accomplish with the Technical College Operating Grant. The business and industry apprenticeship funding is really game-changing for a lot of our colleges. Some of us are very well-versed in it, and some of us are really in the startup phase. In our region, Hutch Community College is probably paramount. Dr. Paramore and her programs, they really do a great job, and we partner with them as well. It's not just community colleges that all partner. They really helped us craft a fire science program that our students can get a certificate and transfer to their program and get an associate's degree. That's something that we do with all colleges, private universities, public universities. That transferability is important because even though we're teaching those skill sets for the beginning part of their career, they're going to need additional skill sets in the future. And so we believe in stackable credentials. You may want a certificate A or certificate B. You might want an associate degree. You might want to go on and get a higher education baccalaureate degree or even a graduate degree. We think that's important. Our nursing program is a great example of that. We have a bi-level program at our institution. I know at Manhattan, they have a bi-level program because not everybody can meet that particular level at this stage in their life, but they might be able to go to work for a few years, get that experience under their belt, and go back and get their RN. Once they have that, it's about $10,000 to $12,000 on average for a nurse to increase their wages. That's an important part of all of our programs. We want to make sure that our programs lead to jobs. If they don't lead to jobs, unfortunately, we have to do what Garden City had to do. We've done it. If a job doesn't create an outcome or if a program doesn't create the outcome of getting a job, we really can't afford to waste any money. So we don't. We do help the students either retrain or find another program that they can transfer to. That's a requirement of HLC, but it's also the responsible thing to do. We support, in general, many of the things that the community colleges have presented here as well. We just want to make sure that you all understand the framework Most of what we do is similar to what they do. They do have a lot of general ed programs. Those are great, where many of us are products of higher ed in that capacity. I do want to address a couple of things that a visual in the presentation, I think it's on page 3 of the testimony part. The state and local taxpayer funding for FTE, you can see a vast difference. That's why the technical college operating grant is important to us. We don't serve the vast number of college students across our 7 colleges, but we're a part of that system. We do have a lot of students that take a variety of courses, and you have documents in front of you that disseminate the enrollment. But you can see our funding is a lower amount of tax funding across the system. In closing, I want to make sure, and then I will come back and address a few questions that you had. We want you to restore the AY26, for most of it, AY25 of 10.5 million to the Tech College Operating Grant. Consider supporting business and industry apprenticeship funding. That is a critical thing. You've heard, I think Heather's group had talked about how that impacts their local. It certainly has been around a long time for us. We have done internships and apprenticeships, but we really do think that that helps us reach out to those industry partners. Recognize the structural difference and ensure that the FY27 budget reflects your priorities and the state constituent priorities for Kansas. If I might, I'm going to skip over to the slides. It's important to note on slide 2, it talks about the cost model. I'm very well versed in the cost model, having been in higher ed in Kansas for 30 years or more. I won't date myself too much, but that is the 1900s. The 19 taxing districts do have a great amount of resources. I'm sure they use them wisely, and we're seeking a very small portion of that. Without the taxing authority, we are requesting it from the state. The cost model does, and I think they alluded to it, there are about 3 colleges that receive fewer than 50% of their enrollment at 2/3 funding. They mentioned Johnson County. I'm pretty sure Kansas City, Kansas Community College is going to be in that mix as well. And some of the Western colleges, they do have a lot of local students. So if they are local, they will receive 1/3 funding, or 1/3 of their state funding instead of 2/3. But most of the delivery of education is at 2/3 funding for most colleges. Student success in business and industry is important. We want to make sure that those meet the needs of Kansans. So we would encourage you to prioritize Kansas needs in that respect. You asked last Monday about how many people live and work in Kansas, or when they complete their degree, do they work in Kansas? And Dr. Utesh mentioned about 92%. That was probably for her institution. We looked at what's called the Kansas Training Information Program, the KTIP report, that actually uses Department of Labor data. And for the technical colleges, it's 93.2%. Our Kansas job placement. Community colleges do extremely well as well, 90%. So most of the people that get trained in Kansas in technical programs are staying in Kansas. 86.5% of technical jobs or technical college graduates get a job that actually is not, it's above the poverty wage, which is really important. We all love to say our nurses make a lot of money, our dental hygienists make a lot of money. They do. But we don't produce 100% of our graduates in nursing and dental hygiene. But it's important that people can make a good living, and 86.5% of our programs in tech colleges produce somebody that makes at least $15 an hour. It's not just, they're all there, but $15 an hour is an important number for us to do a metric. That's not quite high wage, but it's somewhere that you can live in the state of Kansas.
Dr. Nichols, I apologize.
No worries.
We've got 2 more testimonies and 30 minutes to do it.
I'm right there.
Appreciate it very, very much.
So I would be happy, you were right at the ending point. I would stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Dr. Nichols? Seeing none, very thorough. Wait, what? Representative KR, it's okay.
Thank you, Chair. And this, sorry, I was trying to flip through. This might be what I was looking for. Do we have students enrolled in the technical colleges, in the 7 technical colleges?
I didn't have the number in our presentation. I do have some data that I can probably pull up for you if you would like. Off the top of my head, I know there are about 49,000 that were in AY 29 for the state system. Let me grab something real quick.
While you're looking for that, I'll just go ahead and ask the follow-up with that. I thought it was really interesting that the funding is just divided equally among the 7 technical schools when potentially one could be serving twice as many students.
Yes.
Programs. So I wondered if maybe you could send us.
Yeah. Really briefly, I can tell you why we decided to do that. We were asked, what could we do as a legislature a few years ago? And one of the things we talked about was a tech college operating grant, but we had phase 1 and phase 2 in mind. Phase 1 was provide stabilization, so that's why we distributed it equally among the 7. We have a phase 2 that we have been looking for, and we've talked with a few legislators that we have a framework that may come up in the session, it may not. It just depends on this legislative body. I can get you these numbers. Do you want me to fumble through them, or do you want me to get them to you later?
Yeah, you can, we would be very helpful given where we are in the budgetary process. If you could get that to all of us,
Absolutely.
like you can email it to Adrian in my office and I can get it to the committee.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the testimony. And I want to circle back. Earlier this week, we had Wichita State Tech talking about technical colleges, and the presenter showed numbers of Wichita State Tech specifically stood out to me because the tier funding that they received was roughly around $14 million, and the non-tier funding was roughly around $6 million. And so I asked the question, seems like you figured it out because you're also offering associate's degrees and being able to build off that. And I did bring up Salina Tech, and I was just like, what can we learn from this, and how are the other schools approaching this? Can you briefly just kind of tell us your thoughts on the direction of associate's degrees? And then I have one follow-up question.
I am from Salina Tech, so that was a very good example. You could get Dr. Utash and me as well. We have grown significantly. We actually outpace most colleges in the state in our growth, but we started very small. We were the smallest 2-year college in the state for a number of years. So what we focused on is programs that, of course, meet high demand and high wage. I think last year we awarded 69 associate degrees, which was our highest number ever. We didn't have any associate degrees awarded prior to 2016. So we are moving the needle. This year we probably will be on pace with close to 90, maybe more than that. WSU Tech, again, I've worked with Dr. Utash for a long time before. She was at WSU Tech, and before I was at Salina Tech. A lot of things is opportunity that you basically can say yes to. If you have the ability to do it, do it. Especially in your service area, in your back door, right outside your back door, go do it. And that's what she was able to do, is be able to say yes to a lot of things. That's what we were able to do. FTE, when I started off, 346. Last year's FTE, 625. That's a pretty good growth pattern for us. We're not one of the biggest counties in population, And we do have restricted service areas, so we want to make sure we do a great job locally.
I'm glad you're pursuing that. The last question is really, when I started in the session, I was asked to help advise on a bill that would give technical colleges local tax authority. And when I brought that up, asking what you would do with that, it was stated, oh, we do not want local tax authority. So I kind of left going like, well, why was I helping with this bill? Can you expand or quick, I mean, do you want the local tax authority? Would that help Salina, or is it just?
So it could help Salina itself as an individual college, but collectively, most of the most of the tech colleges do not seek taxing authority. Their local tax levies in their counties probably would not support what they need. However, something would be better than nothing. We would have to change something structurally. Our boards are appointed, not elected. We don't have the authority to tax. So if we had the authority to tax, it would certainly help probably WSU Tech. Probably it would help Washburn Tech, but I'm not going to speak for them. They're over here. And it would possibly help some of the other colleges. We don't seek that authority because the model itself mostly works. There's a little bit that we need help with. That's why we're asking for the Tech College operating grant.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nichols. I appreciate you making the journey out to visit.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Julianne Mazachek, President, Washburn University. Thank you for being patient, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman Turk, and other members of the committee for letting me present to you today. I'm Julie Mazachek, and I'm the president of Washburn University, and I am just about to celebrate my 3rd anniversary. So this is my 4th time in front of you. That was one of the first things I got to do as a new president, was present to this committee. So I will go through my slides quickly. I'll go to slide 2 first. Just a reminder that we do look a little different than some of the other institutions in the state. We are governed, I'll talk about our revenues in just a moment. We are governed by Washburn University Board of Regents, so we have, and coordinated by the Kansas Board of Regents. We have 9 regents, and they are appointed, as you can see, there is some locally because we have a local sales tax, and then some by the governor, and then a representative from the Kansas Board of Regents that also serves on our board. Our Washburn Board of Regents also is the governing board for our technical school. So we have one board over our university and our technical school. We are comprised of our traditional university residential campus, and then we also have our affiliated Washburn Institute of Technology. And we offer certificates all the way to Juris Doctorates, and then Tech offers a variety of programs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. On the 3rd slide, though, I'd like to talk just a little bit. This is a slide that's prepared by the Kansas Board of Regents, and it uses data that every university or public school, higher education institution has to submit to the federal government. And this just gives you a sense of how the state, how those institutions are supported through state appropriations, tuition, federal funds, and private funds, and then other revenues. And so you'll notice from this that for Washburn, and this is traditional, we are funded at a lower level than most of the other institutions. So we also look different here in how we are supported, lowest state support for our students. But I do want to also mention, if you go clear to the right of the Washburn University bar, you will see the 20% for other revenues, and that represents our philanthropy. As a percentage of our budget, the dollars that are provided from private gifts and by donors and supporters for Washburn is outsized. We truly have significant support through many decades from supporters from mostly our alumni and our community in making sure that our organization has the funds to be able to move forward. Next slide, I'd like to talk about Washburn and the students that we serve. And you will see in just a moment, I'll share a slide, but we have had increases for the last 3 years in enrollment. This last year, we had an overall increase of 5.8%. We serve at the university about 6,170 students. You'll see that we are primarily an undergraduate institution, as we always have been. We have selected graduate programs that serve our community and serve the businesses in our community. And then we have a long-serving, over 120-year-old law school, one of the 2 law schools in the state. We are 95% of our students are Kansas residents. We have under 5% are international. Our focus is really on making sure that we're serving the state of Kansas and that we're serving our community. You will see that Tech has about 1,550 students. That is record enrollment for us. Wichita State is the largest tech school in the state of Kansas. Washburn Tech is the 2nd largest tech school. And we are 100% Kansas residents, and you'll see primarily it's comprised of Shawnee County students. That is the primary area that we serve. I would just share that this current spring semester, we are seeing record increases again. Our university campus has a year-over-year spring growth in enrollment of 6%, and our tech campus has a year-over-year growth of about 20%. So we are maintaining that growth. And so if you go to the next slide, you will see that we have mapped out, just to create a nice picture, what has happened over the last 5 years in our FTE. And some of you might ask, I've heard you talking about it, that we tend not to talk about head count. We tend to talk about FTE. And the reason is FTE shows how we actually make revenue for the organization. And so on the top, that top orange line is our undergraduates. And that is really the heart of what we do and how we create financial sustainability for our enterprise. We've had 21% growth in the last 5 years in our undergraduate population. At Tech, we have had 23% growth in our technical education. And we're really proud of that, and we know that that makes a significant difference for our community. I would say even with that growth at Tech, you've heard the community colleges, the tech colleges talking about wait lists. We have over 200 students on a wait list for our fall programs, and we have over 140 students on a wait list in our spring. And so that is continuing. We are looking to enhance being able to meet those needs going forward. The next slide, you will see that we are primarily devoted, just as I'd mentioned, to serving Kansas. 95% of our students are Kansas residents. This gives you a distribution of where our students are from. And not surprising to you, we are located in Shawnee County. That is where a majority of our students are from. So you will see that that's primarily the area that our students reside or actually their permanent residence was. And you'll see Northeast Kansas is where we're concentrated, and that has been true for many, many years, and that continues to be true today. The next slide just gives you an overview of the types of academic programs that we have. And we do have all levels. For many years, there's not a community college that resides in Shawnee County. We try to act as the community college in Shawnee County. And so we have had associate's degrees for over 50 years. We have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, all the way to Juris Doctorate. I just wanted to share that most of our classes, we're a teaching institution, our magic is in person. And so 54% of ours are 100% in-person format. That hybrid is really an opportunity for you to have in-person and online to provide some flexibility for the students. And then finally, we have about 28% of our classes are online. We have very few programs that are online, so I want to differentiate that. But our students prefer, when they are questioned, they like the opportunity to possibly add one class a semester so that they have flexibility in either being able to work or around their schedules, their private schedules. And so this has, we've stayed very consistent in the amount of online courses that we offer. On the next slide, We are very proud of this. One of the things that we are really focused on is being affordable and accessible, and that has been true for many years. We are an open access institution. Many of our students work while they are going to school, and they are just finding a way to make sure that they can better their education so that they can pursue their dreams and goals for their career. And so we've been focused on affordable tuition, remaining competitive in our per credit hour cost. We do have transparency in the cost in that we do not have any extra fees. Students know how many hours they take, they multiply it by the rate, and they can identify what their tuition level will be. And then we have been expanding and strengthening our scholarship programs. And so some of you know, I talked about that several years ago. Shawnee County Thrives and Promise Scholarships, opening opportunities for students to be able to choose higher education and to hopefully help remove or reduce the hurdle that they have related to the finances of higher education. We are our students graduate with the lowest debt of all Kansas public regional universities, and actually all public universities. Among the top 5 lowest in the Midwest for our public region, that's an 8-state region. And then this is achieved, just as I said before, competitive tuition, no university fees, and our scholarship programs. So I want to talk just a few moments about the financial health of our organization, our enterprise. It is, and you've probably heard other higher ed presidents, just as you've heard the people who have spoken before me today, it's a challenging time in higher education. And creating a financially sustainable enterprise is of utmost importance. And so I will say this is not new for Washburn. So we have excellent financial health. And we work diligently to ensure that we have strategic alignment of the dollars that we spend with the institutional goals, that we have a balanced budget. And we have had a balanced budget, I will say, forever. Our board requires that. We have proactive budget management throughout the year. We do key performance tracking, and we're focused on revenues and expenses by areas, just as you've heard the community colleges and the technical colleges talk about today. And we have focused efforts on continuing to increase productivity and to innovate so that we can be better at what we're doing and how we're delivering our programs to students and their success. So how do we do that? We have ongoing strategies to manage our costs, to grow student enrollment in Kansas. Our focus is student enrollment in Kansas. We want to be flexible to quickly address the challenges and what our community needs us to do to be able to support the workforce. And then finally, I'll mention again, we do have strong donor support, and we spend time with donors to enhance what they might be able to do, especially in scholarships and in capital funds and in supporting our faculty and staff. And so if you move to the next slide, just a very high level view, this is something that is tracked across higher ed institutions across the nation. Washburn does have a strong financial position in the state of Kansas. You will see Washburn on the bottom, the other 6 regent institutions. We are usually near the top, going back and forth with KU. And this is something, though, that has been consistent through the years. We anticipate that the CFI, which hadn't been released yet for fiscal year 25, is going to be 8.35. So we'll see another increase. And then our Moody's rating is the highest that we expect to ever receive for Washburn University. On the next slide, what are we focused on in terms of fiscal responsibility? And that is really operational efficiency. And that, just to give you a few things that we do that I am sure many institutions do, but we've been doing regularly. I review with leadership every open position that comes available on the campus. We review it to make sure that we need to fill it. And if we do need to fill it, that we have it assigned doing the person assigned doing the things that make the most difference for the unit and for delivering the services to our students. We look carefully at our vendor relationships to ensure that those are that we're getting the most that we can out of our outside vendors. And then we're always looking to reallocate either positions or operating dollars within the organization to ensure that we are being effective and that we are increasing or sustaining our ROI. We are engaged in a financial sustainability data project. We realize that in order to achieve a data-informed decision-making, that our leaders have to have access to quality data in a timely way so that they have the information they need to make a decision on a day-to-day basis and then to support their long-term strategic planning. We're engaged in that right now. We're making significant progress. And then that will help support their day-to-day budget tracking and reporting. And then finally, we have had some growth in our finance area. We realized that we were not supporting our leaders sufficiently with financial expertise. And so we have been expanding by just 2 positions to make sure that we're able to support our leaders in making the best decisions for the future. On the next page, you will see that you've heard us talk about, and I heard you talk about that Wichita State Tech had been here, and we're similar but different. So Washburn University and Washburn Tech, we do have a unique affiliation, and that has to do with the way that Washburn Tech was formed and how it became a part of Washburn University umbrella. It was a high school program by a consortium of high schools in our community. It was called Kaw Area Technical School. It transitioned from the local area high schools to the university, in which they became Washburn Institute of Technology. And this, in 2015, this affiliation was recognized nationally as a model for university and technical school partnerships. And you've seen other schools in our state actually do similar structures as a result of that. And why is this so interesting? Because you've heard us talk about that we're always about trying to find those pathways for students to be able to not only earn technical certifications, but to be able to take that knowledge, take that education, and be able to stack it to be able to achieve an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. And we even have stories of our students going from a certificate all the way to law school. And got a welding degree and a welding certificate at the tech school, and then made his way all the way to now he's a practicing lawyer. And that's the type of story that we love to tell. So we really do look to bridge our career training with our higher education. We have one accreditation. We are not separately accredited. We're all under one system. We do that together. We also have a way of, we believe, streamlining our administrative structure, because we do share in being able to provide some support to Washburn Tech so that we do not have to duplicate on both campuses. And we're very proud of that. We graduate just over 2,200 students a year between university and tech. Nearly 80% of university students remain in Kansas, and nearly 100% of our tech students remain in Kansas. 96% of our graduates are placed in their field of study within 6 months. And then our graduation rates are higher than our peers for schools such as Washburn. And then you'll see on the next page a variety of Washburn Tech programs, and we do have some Associate of Applied Science degrees, and actually many of those have been added within the last 2 years. We're very proud of that. So we have created another pathway for students. And you will see that those are taught mostly in person. We do have a very small program that we're very proud of with Fort Riley as our primary base, Heroes Make America, and it's a certified logistics training program that's provided online for service members that are transitioning from the Army into the new roles. And so we're very proud of that, and we believe that we may be expanding that in the future at the request of the federal government. And then finally, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your partnership through these years to be able to help make higher ed a possibility for students that we serve. I want to say thank you for the need-based aid that you've provided for students. So many of our students have a financial need, and the need-based aid does allow them to be able to possibly make that choice of higher education. And it's either whether they go or whether they do not choose higher education. And what we know is that for us to have the talent pipeline that we need for the future to ensure that we have a thriving economy, we need more of our high school students to choose post-secondary education, technical college, community college, or 4-year degrees, to be able to ensure that we have a thriving economy going forward. And that makes a difference for so many students. Your student success dollars have made a significant difference. Our retention rates are increasing. Our ability to keep students and provide the services that students need today to be successful, those dollars have been critical and they have made a difference. We do have a responsible campus environment. Thank you for cybersecurity dollars and for demolition funds over these last years. We did demolish another building on our campus this summer, one that we have actually been trying to fix for many years in the middle of campus, and it is now green space. And while it was a hard decision to take that building that had historical significance for us, it was pre-tornado actually, and but it was time for us to do something different. And then finally, Washburn Tech North, we are on target. Some of you were there last year when we cut the ribbon. It is going to open in fall of 2026, and we are truly hopeful that it will reduce some of our wait lists as we move forward. You will be hearing more about that as we get ready to cut the ribbon. And then this year, I just want to share that the university is not asking for any state enhancement funding. We are grateful for our base budget and for the operating grant that you provide to Washburn and to support our students. I also want to share that, however, for our tech college, which receives a different funding stream, I want to support the requests that have come forward as Greg presented just a few moments ago, as Sherry Utash presented. The funding that we receive for the tech operating grant makes a difference. And we do not have taxing authority. We do not get other capital funds for us. We use that for equipment. We use that to help us be able to maintain our facilities and be able to create the opportunities that our students need in the programs that we're trying to create, expand, and to enhance. And so I also would write how important it is for the full funding of Excel and CTE and for tiered and non-tiered. So we are grateful for what you do for higher education. We're grateful for how supportive you've been for Washburn, and I just want to say thank you. And I'm ready to stand for questions if there are any.
Thank you, President Mazachek. I really appreciate it. Do we have, real quickly, because I have totally gone over time today. We are squishing together 2 days into this one, and I failed. So I'm sorry. I can go long, Matt. If you want to stay, I can go long after this, or you can come back tomorrow. I would prefer you come back tomorrow if you can. All right, thank you. With that, President, we have more time for questions. We have exactly 6 minutes. Who would like to go first? Oh, look at you, Representative Haskins. Please lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my favorite time of the year. If you don't know, I'm not here if it wasn't for Dr. Mazachek. Thank you for your presentation on this. And overall, I just wanted you to maybe double down a little bit. I asked the question about Senate Bill 251, and I recall when I was there at Washburn, this was an issue that we were addressing internally. How do we deal with in-state tuition for, undocumented students? And I was just wondering if you wanted, I know the answer would be we will follow the law, but I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit more about the university's mission in serving students, no matter where they're coming from, to be there for them, and talk a little bit about Washburn's mission and your core.
I would say probably, if you were to ask any of us that question, we would probably say exactly what you just said. But we would also share that our goal is whoever lives in the state of Kansas, that we want to make sure that they have educational opportunities so that they can better their life, their families' lives, and their future generations. And I can speak for us at Washburn. We do not know who is undocumented. That is not something that we know. And so I can't tell you what the impact of that would be. I do know that that we will do whatever we can to serve students within the law. But right now, I'm not sure how many of those students, if any, that we are serving.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Kahar.
Thank you, Chair. This may be more of a request for information. I really appreciated your thoughtfulness in keeping tuition affordable and the debt for students very affordable. I feel like that's the reason the state subsidizes universities and colleges, is to keep the costs down. And so what I'd really like, as we're moving forward in the budget process, is a chart, if the chair would agree, showing a comparison of the total tuition and cost per credit hour for each college or university. And then also a chart showing community colleges that would, in addition to the mill levy comparison, because the mill levies are very different depending on assessed value. If we could get a cost, local cost per credit hour and Kansas cost per credit hour for community college.
And that is a great question, but that'd be more of a question for research and KBOR. And
Kansas Board of Regents does have that information.
can get that.
We can provide ours.
Okay.
What I would like to do so that we don't drop the ball on that, because it is more than one simple thing. Meet with me afterwards, and then we can make the request together, and then we can get it to the committee. All right, thank you. Anything else for the president? All right, great. Well, I think that was a magnificent presentation. I really appreciate it. We really like to see what's going on at Washburn. In so many ways, you are leading the way. And thanks again for being patient. And thank you. That's it for us today. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.